like absolutely broken as she came in.
Oh, it's a Monday morning, isn't it? So,
Yeah, I suppose you're right. It is. Yeah.
aye, aye, aye.
Just in the last 5 minutes as we come on to the show, Andrew Moran has signed a new contract that runs until 2027. He came in, didn't he, a couple of times, once or twice at the beginning of De Zerbi's reign, I think, as a very brief sub. Suspect we might be seeing a bit more of him in the future. Totally off piste, but here we are.
Well, that's what everyone wanted to talk about, I figured. So we could dig in probably 45 minutes on that.
Yeah, give the people what they want.
Yeah.
Welcome, episode 211. Adam, Craig, it is a Monday morning, as you said, Craig, over there. How are you feeling?
Oh, I don't know. Where do we start? I'm still not over yesterday, obviously. But yeah, otherwise I'm feeling all right. How are you, Adam?
Look, I've been better. I had back surgery last week. I am on a cocktail of medication, of which I don't know how weird this will get. So who knows what's going to actually come out of my mouth. Outside of that, yeah, great. It would have been nice if our team didn't, do what they did yesterday. But we move on to Forest.
Thank you. Yeah, we do. And we'll cover Forest later on because it has the makings of a massive game now, mentally, if nothing else, doesn't it? We have a hell of a job picking this team up from 120 minutes where they looked absolutely shattered. And then the emotional, obviously, hit of losing on penalties. To then have to travel up to Forest, who have been absolutely woeful at home, but will definitely be desperate for points against a team that are going to be a bit run down. And we simply need to get a result from that, don't we, if we want to continue a European push.
Yeah, we do. And I think, like you said, it's probably the mental toll it's going to take rather than the physical one. These are world-class athletes in some senses. So, that's the thing that I'm going to be worried about the most is how do you pick these people back up and attack that Forest team that should be there for the taking, but we know it's not that easy.
Yeah, it never really is.
When
it comes to us.
Yeah, my town has this horn and it goes off every now and then. I think we've probably heard this a few times before. It's gone on. It's been a big one. That means something is like really heavily on fire. So we'll see. I'm worried about the mentality, but I'm more worried about who the hell starts up front because Dennis Ndav, I think I've seen enough from the man. At this point,
I think we all have.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just glad. I think if he missed his penalty, he would have been. We would have done a GoFundMe to buy his plane ticket to get out of Brighton because I think that would have been a bit of the nail in the coffin. I'm glad he scored that, but I tell you what, the guy just does not look up for it, does he? He doesn't look capable, and it's not just about this game, right? Because we've got a game 3 days after on a Saturday against Wolves, and then a game on the 4th of May, then a game on the 8th of May, then a game on the 14th and the 18th of May. Like this, if we've got like Danny Welbeck's out for a little while, and who knows what's going on with Evan Ferguson, I am terrified of having Dennis Ndav lead the line of this team. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, Brighton have failed to score in 4 of their 6 games at Wembley in all competitions, and they remain winless in all 6 matches. Drawn 2, lost 4. It's the most any club side has played at the stadium without ever winning there. Is there a time in the future that you hope to see that undone, or are we a bit of a, this is the second time we've been to Wembley now in 4 years? Because we went in 2019 as well. As long as we continue on the trajectory we are, surely we're going to end this hoodoo in the next couple of years, right? We should be making Wembley every now and again in the next couple of years. We sure as shit should surely finally get a result.
I think this was the best chance so far, wasn't it? I think you'd like to hope that it just gets, I guess, an easier chance, if you like. But yeah, it's not a nice record to have, obviously. But it's more that we didn't score yesterday than than anything else. I'm more worried about that. That doesn't happen often, does it?
No,
well,
it doesn't.
Josh, you were obviously at the game. I know we're going to get into it because I'm interested. I'm interested about the whole experience. I'm in all of that and what the vibe was like. You saw some things that we didn't see. I mean, you hinted in the chat that it sounded like Matoma was taking on fluids early on, like constantly, and maybe was dealing with something. But more broadly, I don't know how you guys feel about after yesterday. Like I was disappointed, but it also, I don't come away feeling like, oh my God. I know there's a lot of chatter about Tony Bloom needs to sort out the squad depth. How many times have we talked about squad depth? We know this. We know it's been a problem, but I'm also not. We came up against a side that is funded beyond belief. They should be beating us comfortably. They didn't. I don't want to get into should we have won the game or not. Like, should we have said, yeah, sure, whatever. But frankly, it looked like two football sides that were deep in the rounds of a boxing match, slugging at one another. No one was knocking either person out. There was no way. It looked like two tired sides. No one, frankly, really deserved to win that game. And then it just came down to the lack of penalties. But I didn't really feel, I think facing Man City in a final ruins it a little bit. Because I'm like, well, we got close. Like, we didn't embarrass ourselves. We went to Wembley. We could have beaten Man U. He's very much so. We could have absolutely beaten them. Maybe we should have. But I don't think either of us had beaten Man City. And, we did it. We did what we came out to do. And now let's go and get Europe in the league. Like, that's how I feel about it. I don't know about you. I'm not devastated. I'm disappointed.
As soon as it went to pens for me, I become less bothered.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, to me, it's essentially a flipping of a coin, right? You bought a lottery ticket. Let's see if you're the winner or not. Like,
do you think that's because we're English? We've seen this one too many times.
it possibly could be, yeah. But like, it's all luck based, isn't it? There's not a huge amount of skill after that. Like, you can't say that like De Zerbi or Ten Hag out tacticked each other with like penalty shootout. Like, there's nothing about that. And once it gets into sudden death, there's even less about it. It could be like, oh, they picked the superior five to like take their penalties. Once it gets to sudden death, no one wants to take that penalty. No one who's walking up there is one that picked to do it. So at that point, it's even less like, it's just, I text my Man United friend on the day and I was like, well, now it's gone to penalties. Good game. Like, whatever happens.
Yeah,
it is.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
And then secondly, not only that, but like, I agree with you. I feel like this was the who gets fed to Man City final. And we're always going to have a better chance at 7th or above than a one-hit game against City, because I would rather have that than the other. I would rather have a 10-game slog for 7th place with the squad depth lack of that we have than a one-hit shot at City, because I think we would lose that 9 times out of 10. And I think we have the manager and squad in place to get enough results to make 7th or higher, as opposed to going at City.
Do you think Pep is happy he's facing Man U and not us? Because I do.
I reckon he is.
Probably.
Yeah. It's an easier.
It requires less thinking.
It's an easier team talk as well, isn't it? So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you anyway. Like, it gets the sudden death penalties in the semi-final. There's just luck of the draw now, and there's nothing to differentiate the sides whatsoever. So you're either on the good or the bad end at this point. And again, I agree with you, Josh, is that we've got more chance of succeeding in these 7 or 8 games to get us into 5th or 6th than we are just having a one hit against Man City and hoping for the best, because that normally doesn't go well. But yeah, I mean, you take it on the chin, but I think as the game went on, the less I I felt dejected, but it wasn't like heartbreaking. Do you know what I mean? Because it was just sort of, okay, this is how it's going to end. If we were soundly beaten by a Man United team, I'd be sitting here a lot more worried.
Yeah. Poor Mikey in the chat, just chatting away to himself over here. Let's talk about it. He's just sending in some love for Solly March. I feel like everybody needs to be. He thinks we embarrassed him. Took 2 hours and 14 penalties to beat us. Yeah, I do love that De Gea didn't save any of them, continuing the crappiest 2 goalkeepers at penalty streak. as long as possible.
He kept staring at his bottle where he had his cheat codes written on it, and we just hit every penalty to the right side. He kept diving the other way. He looked, even the Man U fans afterwards were just like, we all thought we were going to lose because De Gea is so bad at this.
I mean, we're talking two keepers. One, Sanchez has never saved a penalty in his professional career. And two, De Gea had a run of 40 penalties in a row where he didn't save one. And that wasn't long ago he broke that hoodoo. And it was, if I recall correctly, it wasn't even a particularly good save that he actually made one on. And then he's gone back to letting them all in ever since. So, this is
Spanish school.
It was all going to be about who wasn't. Yeah. Help. It was all going to be about who didn't hit the target yesterday. And unfortunately, Solly decided to rinse and repeat his Charlton exercise by spooning it in the exact same spot, in the exact same style over the bar. Yeah,
look, no one should be angry at Solly March and all that. I know everyone's come out in support of him. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, he goes from strength to strength. I saw somebody earlier. After he did that at Charlton, he went on his run of incredible form. Let's hope he does that again. Having said that, I don't want to see him ever take a penalty again because two is a pattern, and he's clearly not got it, and I don't want to see it again.
If it makes you feel better, I don't think he wanted to take one again.
There's a reason he's number 7.
Well, even if he's like, I don't care where, I don't want him. I want him after the goalkeeper at this point. on the list.
This is a world-class level bit of statage here. This was Manchester United's first penalty shootout win since they played Rochdale in September 2019. Goalkeeper for that one, Rochdale legend, Robert Sanchez.
Is Mikey? Are we paying Mikey to do this at this point?
I think Mikey is like the man in the box. We're going to have to start giving him a little segment himself, I think.
Yeah.
At this point. I did see Mikey yesterday. Let's talk pre-match build-up a little bit because it was a good time. So we drove down because the trains are an absolute mess, all bus replacement shit and all this sort of stuff. So we drove down. It took about an hour and a half. Was actually really rapid. I was expecting it to be a lot worse. But we got there about 10:30, parked it, dropped off our luggage at the hotel. It looked bougie as hell. Dropped off our stuff, turned around to leave, and Mr. Bloom himself was checking in behind us. So that confirmed to me that I was far out of my hotel league. He was with his, all his kids, his wife, everything. So I didn't harass the poor man. I just kind of nodded and walked on. And then headed straight down to Fox Park. Super, super close to the stadium. As you know, if you've been anywhere near that area, I'd actually never been anywhere near Wembley before. I just never went, never had a reason to without Brighton going. So
it's not somewhere where you want to just go for a tourist standpoint, I'll be honest.
A lot of people go for concerts and stuff though, don't they? Or England games, stuff like that. So I know I had tickets to an England game once and ended up not going. I also had tickets for a Take That concert and didn't go either.
I think the last time I went was for an NFL game.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. But
yeah. So yeah, we headed down to Fox Park, got there about 11ish. It opened at 10:30. It was already pretty busy. But some of the lads that I was meeting there had already got nabbed a table, like a proper full table. There was loads of places to eat in there. Unreal food. Unreal. Everything looked amazing. We got some burgers because that's who we are. And then within about 15, 20 minutes, packed. Absolutely ramo. Downstairs was absolutely packed by 11:30. People obviously knew that they had to be in by 12:30, otherwise they were not getting in at all. Because then it became first come, first served. Rammed. It was absolutely rammed. And who's the fella that does the end of season players awards, the guy that presents everything? What's his name? Mikey in the chat, you'll fucking know.
Yeah, we've got to draft Mikey in. This is a Mikey question.
Let's go to Mikey in the chat. What's the name of the fella? Reynolds. Richie Reynolds? No.
Yeah,
Richie
I think
Reynolds
that's it. Is it?
Richie Reynolds? I feel like Richie Reynolds is the NFL guy, isn't it? Or is that Neil Reynolds?
Send in your answers on a postcard to us.
Richard Reynolds. There you go. Yeah. So Reynolds was doing all the MCing. And we had a couple of people come in. Gordon Greer came down for a little say hello. We had Gary Dicker and Guy Butters do a Buzz's Boot Room live. That was wonderful.
Nice. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
If you've not seen Buzz's Boot Room, by the way, I encourage everybody to go rewatch every episode that's been on. It's truly superb. It's really, really good.
It's good content from the club.
It is, which has been, it's a rarity, isn't it? Really, like since we've become a Premier League side, a lot of clubs have been quite good at generating content, and Albion have always been pretty lackluster. But we seem to have absolutely just hit a gold mine with Buzz's Boot Room Challenge because it's so good. Tony came on, had a little chat with us all. Barbara was in attendance as well. And yeah, it was absolutely heaving by the time we left to head over to Wembley itself.
What was the breakout of Man U versus, or was it separated fan-wise?
In terms of the stadium or Box Park?
Both.
Box Park was Brighton only. It was all, it was reserved solely for us. So no United fans could come in. They had their own like space, like fan zone somewhere else. I don't know where it was. So it was all decked out. Like the club they'd said, I'd seen them say somewhere that they were not going to do any of the decorating or anything like that. Went in there was just banners everywhere, like Forza Albion, Brighton of Albion, this and the, like they'd like gone all out. It was really good. They'd really gone all out. And yeah, it was a good time. We were there for about 4 hours, like obviously.
Yeah.
It was really good. Met a couple of stateside Seagulls. I posted out that I was there. So the 34 Veltman on my back was a bit of a target because people were just tapping me on the shoulder, which was really good though. It was really good to meet. There was a lot of, there was a fair chunk of American fans that had not only got themselves a ticket, but also like managed to get into Box Park, which is hard enough as it is. It was tough. Mikey, did they take your microphone off you? No, Mikey, I had it in my pocket. I didn't even bother getting it out. It was so loud in there. I left, and you know when you've been clubbing and you've got that buzz, like that constant
tinnitus
buzz in your ear? Yeah.
It's been so long, I barely remember.
I think I had that for the next like 2 hours. Like it was like until we got back really to the hotel room. Like it was so loud in there. The music was just so obnoxious. So obviously I couldn't do any on the spot interviews because it was just so bad. But yeah, we didn't really see any Manchester United fans until we got to Wembley itself. Box Park was just Brighton everywhere.
Excellent.
How was the and then obviously the pre-game was good. What was like the vibe at the match? Because I think the first half was pretty intense and there was a good atmosphere, and the second half felt like it felt shit. What was it like in the stadium?
It was buzzing before kickoff, absolutely buzzing. So we were in the nosebleeds up in the 500s. I was really disappointed. I'm used to being either in the North Stand at the Amex, which I will be doing much more often now because I'm a fucking season ticket holder. Happy as that. But I'm used to being in the North Stand, which is pretty much the only place with a decent atmosphere at the Amex. Or I'm used to away games first and foremost, more than anything. Living in the Midlands before I moved over to the US, like it's such an easy central hub to go to just about any away game I wanted to back in the day. And my dad used to work for the railway as well, so I had a free train pass like from my dad, so I could just use the trains anywhere for free. So
that's worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
more.
Solid, that is.
I would say because I got it when I was about 16 and it went away when I was 25. So it ran me all the way through uni as well. I probably used about 50 to 60,000 pounds worth of train travel. Like in that time,
say, I'm pretty sure that my train costs with Southern Rail were more than my Sussex fees.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, like so being able to just like go up to Huddersfield, back down, up to Doncaster, like you could go wherever you wanted and it just didn't cost anything. And obviously away days the atmosphere is very good every time. So I was first and foremost, I was really disappointed that as soon as the game kicked off in the 500s, it just went into become like a library. Not what I'm used to, but also without being too disrespectful, not a surprise, right? This is your My Albion Plus and General sale below that are attending at this point. So a lot of people that are genuinely just there for a day out and they're enjoying the game in their own way. If I wanted to enjoy it more, I should have bought a season ticket a year ago and gone down to the 300s because that looked absolutely brilliant.
And that's where all the reprobates were having a yeah.
But the atmosphere was decent for the first half in general, even if I wasn't a part of it for a lot of it, which is a bit sad. the 300s made a lot of noise. United fans were absolutely dead, like so quiet. Second half, heard a lot more from them as they took control for about 15 minutes. From about 60 to 75, they were really causing us problems.
Yeah.
That was about the only time we really heard from them at all, until the penalty shootout, obviously, where it was like cheering and booing. But yes, you're right. Second half was absolutely shocking. I went to meet a fella who I'd been speaking to on Instagram. I'm trying to remember his name. Who really wanted to meet up with me. Tom messaged me on Instagram to meet up with me. His girlfriend actually did, MVP girlfriend.
Yeah, that's we spoke about this, didn't we? That's absolute solid Mrs. work. Absolutely solid. My wife would never do that.
It took me. I shit you know. I was in 536. He was in 529. It took me the entire 15 minutes to get from 536 to 529 because the concourse was so packed for people trying to get food and drinks and all that sort of shit. When I walked back, because I was walking back as soon as it kicked off, I saw him, said hello. We chatted for like a minute, and then I went back. And as the game kicked off, and I got back pretty quickly, but it was still rammed. Like they'd opened up a nice little corridor in the middle where I could just shoot through. But there was, I would say, like 20% of each stand of the 500s was still at the back by the time the game kicked off for the second half. So I'm not surprised the atmosphere was shit. And then obviously shortly after that, we didn't have much of the ball for a short amount of time. So that was crapper atmosphere.
They also do something. I noticed it's the other game as well, the day before, and other England games at Wembley. And I don't know whether it's just that people are just chilling and getting beers and stuff, but it takes people so long. Maybe it's what you said, to get out after half time. When the game kicks off for the second half, it looks like the stadium's deserted. They need to work on that, because it's like either it's taking too long for people to get what they want, or they're not making it clear the bloody thing's kicking off. And you're like, hold on, like, this is fairly important, and it looks like 10% of people are sat in their bloody seats.
Oh no, it's the former, 100%. There's better staffing at the Amex for food and drink than there is at Wembley for 90,000 people. Shocking. Like, it was really poor. Not great at all. Luckily, we didn't really want anything to eat or drink at that point because the queues were so bad. We were like, nah, it's fine.
It puts you off, doesn't it? Like, it just gets to a point where you just can't even be bothered with it. But yeah. Whenever I go, I think I went to Wembley in 2019. It was exactly the same. So nothing's changing or going in a direction that it should be. Like, it just ends up putting you off. You just end up just not doing it.
Yep. Bit of breaking news in the podcast again. First, Andrew Moran. Now Stellini has been sacked by Spurs. Not even a bit of match fixing at home to Albion can save him from the boot.
Why on earth has he been sacked? Surely that's so weird. That's come out of nowhere, isn't it? Have they got like one of Conte's old like boot cleaners or something to take over as manager now? It was so weird that he was in the job in the first place. We're firing everyone, but we'll keep your mate on. I don't get it.
It's got to be Tim Sherwood, isn't it, really?
Follow the
Frank Lampard path.
I was joking about this, but this is all just a big campaign from Ryan Mason has got dirt.
Back at
Daniel
the helm.
Levy, I'm telling you, he's got something. And Ryan Mason is going to be leading this club to whatever destination it's going to.
Relegation, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Game of Thrones thing.
Well, it looks like Chelsea are getting Poch as well. That's the rumour. What a ridiculous. They may as well just swap managers after swap chaos, stupid managers that don't work between Chelsea and Spurs over time. Mason will be at Chelsea soon.
Are there any other interim managers that actually get the sack? Like, that's just comical, isn't it? That someone has been put on interim temporary charge and then still get relieved from your duties.
You're so bad, we'd rather have nothing.
Yeah. You were only here for a short period of time anyway, but we're cutting it even shorter.
Yeah. It's impressive in some ways.
Yeah.
After the De Zerbi stuff, he bloody deserves it, this guy. I don't like him.
All right, let's talk the actual game. The 120 minutes of 0-0. So much analysis to be able to deal with this one. First thing that was really, really obvious to me and surprised me, because I haven't watched a lot of Manchester United, Obviously, coming away from the fact that Enciso was one of the players that got the nod to start yesterday. More than anything, I was so surprised to see how much long ball they elected to play yesterday. Is that, if you two watch Man United more than me, please speak now. I did not know that Ten Hag football was very long route one football, because for basically the entire game, barring those 15 or so minutes in the second half where they really dominated possession for a little bit, that was all it was. It was just hoofing it up, hoping that Anthony would outpace Estepinian. And that's really the worst option you could have, because Estepinian's the only quick centre back or left back or any defender we have in the current lineup, isn't he?
I didn't see it. I haven't watched too much of United, really. It felt like a very reactive approach to how we play and trying to beat the press, I guess. But like you said, it wasn't the best choice for them to do. But it didn't really. Well, there wasn't a lot of decent play all around, but it definitely didn't strike me as a good game plan for me. But weird.
This was fairly unusual as far as I'm aware. Like, I am looking at the stats as well, going back and looking at some of their previous games and where they're at, like long ball wise. What I guess you got to understand as well. So understand, we all could see it. Like, we know they're playing a makeshift back line, so that's a bit different. So it's not like you've got Martinez and Varane being able to play out intricately at the back. It's a bunch of idiots in there. And then the weirder thing though is that, like, so here's when they played Sevilla and got battered. De Gea played 6 long balls from the back. When they played against Forest recently and won that game, he played, I think it was, I just saw this, 13 long balls out from the back. Against us, he played 36. So that's an absurd amount. So De Gea was just hoofing it. I think part of that, and maybe you can correct me because you were there, was down to the fact that we were pressing pretty hard. We were making De Gea uncomfortable. I don't think he wanted to do that too much. But they also weren't offering a lot in terms of proper build-up play, were they? Like, really, outside of the space of a couple of 10-minute periods at the end of each half, they looked like they looked like a side that didn't have proper ideas. And I loved seeing that. Every time the ball went to Anthony, I got excited. I was like, all right, just show him onto it. Just protect his left foot. He's not going to do anything with his right, and he never could.
Yeah, he couldn't. He was not
the
great
other way around.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
He was not great at all yesterday. Who was great, obnoxiously good, actually, was their haphazard centre back Lindelof yesterday. I thought he played really well, which is really not great for us. I thought he performed pretty well for what I expect from Victor Lindelof. What did you make of Robert Sanchez in goal? Distribution-wise, it was really scary watching him again from the stands, because it just felt like he took 2 seconds too long on every ball, and then quite often went for the wrong one. What did it look like on the TV to you two? What did the Sanchez performance look like for you?
I don't think it looked too bad for me. I think we're just now preconditioned to expect a mistake, right? So and then inherently it becomes more scary even at the thought of it. I thought he was okay yesterday. I thought distribution, again, you know what you're going to get from Sanchez. We know that Steele's better at distribution, and you just have to accept that at this point. But he's our second goalkeeper. He plays the cup games. He made a couple of very good saves, in fairness to him. But again, I think that distribution, because we've seen it fail before, I feel a few more butterflies than I would normally, and that's probably where I sit, is that actually it's not too bad. I don't feel as comfortable because of the mistakes he's made in the past.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. I thought it was fine. I agree with Craig. I think we're preconditioned to think, how's he going to cock this up? But I'm mainly nervous when he's coming out to retrieve the ball or whatnot. And he did a decent job there. I think my bar though for Sanchez right now is very, very low. It's, are you going to make a monumental cock up? And if you didn't, I'm like, okay, you did a pretty decent job. And that's all you can ask for. I think the other thing that maybe clouded a lot of it was I thought Dunk was absolutely outstanding. And when you've got Lewis Dunk playing like that, it's going to help the keeper out a little bit as well. And yeah, Lindelof was good, but I agree with Jay in the chat, and I think I messaged you guys a bunch. I can't remember. I tweeted this. I was so upset to the wrong word, but it was just annoying that we didn't have Ferguson as an option, because they're playing. How tall is Luke Shaw? Like, you just wish you had Ferguson in there in the box so you could actually have a body that could get on the end of crosses. And Welbeck's not that guy. I don't know what Undav is. And it was such a missed opportunity after that injury, where, as Jay said, I think if Ferguson's on the pitch, we win that game in 90 minutes. I really do. I
think that area is where you start to see the criticism for squad depth, right? Because we've got a couple of injuries, and they've been moan and cry and whine about United injuries, but look at their bench yesterday, and look at the way they can change the game with that bench, right? You've got Weghorst, you've got Sabitzer on the bench, you've got Malacia on the bench, you've got Sancho on the bench, you've got Alanga if you want to bring him on. At least they offer something different and a little bit of, like, they've actually done it before. When you're looking at that bench, and I think it speaks volumes that we made 2 substitutions yesterday. We brought on Undav, who shouldn't be considered a decent level striker at this point. And we brought on Joel Veltman. And that was not in order to present anything different. It was just in order to be able to shuffle things up so that McAllister and Gross could play a different role. So we were hoping for 2 already fatigued players to do something a bit different in a different position. Outside of that, you had Van Hecker, who's a centre-back. You got Colwill, also a centre-back. You got Steele in goal. You've got Offia, who absolutely is not going to be getting game time. But even if he did, he's a centre-back as well. Sometimes full-back. You got Billy Gilmore, who clearly has not received any trust from Roberto De Zerbi. And you've got 2 players that are 18 and 19 years old with barely any experience at all at this level, with Ayari and Buonanotte. You know what I mean? Like, you can't expect to bring on Ayari and Buonanotte to take penalties at this level with the pressure on them, can you? You can't bring that. And I think that was part of his thinking too. I think that's where you run into problems as Brighton and Hove Albion at this point. We've got a couple of unfortunate injuries, but that team out there yesterday, there was absolutely nobody on that bench you could bring on that could make a difference or make a change in that game. Yeah.
And I think Adam said at the top as well, is that we've been talking about squad depth for a while, and this is exactly what happened. And you summed it up pretty well, is that the substitutions were made to free up existing people that were already tired to play a new role, as opposed to fresh legs to make a direct substitution or a direct change. Someone like a Sarmiento would have been perfect. Having Ferguson instead, and those sort of players, we haven't got that luxury at the moment to bring the level of substitutes that they had off the bench in order to change things. So yeah, it is. We know it's an issue. It will continue to be an issue. It will be an even bigger issue in the next 9 games or so, where we're playing every Tuesday and Saturday for the remaining 4 weeks. So it will be a big factor in us not only getting through to an FA Cup final, but also getting the points that we probably deserve, or the results that we deserve in the next few weeks. Probably my main area of concern, to be fair.
Yeah, it's correct. It's correct, but it's the same as, because I think there was a few accounts on Twitter that were pushing this idea about depth. And again, like you said, we've discussed it a lot. I think my main thought around it is we have to manage expectations on what's been achieved by this club and what could have been feasibly achieved by this club. And I know I've said this time and time again, but if you go back to the summer and then you sort of move onwards in terms of where we were at with Potter and all the staff leaving and everything like that, this group of individuals that are responsible for managing the squad in and of itself, have done an incredible job. They've strengthened in lots of different areas where players are doing well and impressing that have been brought in relatively recently. Spending wise, it's all been done very well. Gems have come into this team that we couldn't have anticipated even a few months back. The fact that we're all sat here talking about how I think we would have got to the FA Cup final with bloody Evan Ferguson, who wasn't in the squad. He was in the under 21s at the start of the season, and Ciso scored one of the goals of the season last week to get us the points there. Like, these are miracles that are happening. We're still on a pathway to get into Europe. Again, I go back to when Potter left and everyone went out, and my expectations were, how bad does this get? How do we get involved in a relegation scrap? So that's a long way of saying, absolutely, we have a depth problem. But of course we have a depth problem, because if not, like, what are you expecting? This is a club that can't spend what all these other clubs are spending. We have to have a weakness. We're incredible in the transfer market. We're incredible at bringing these players along. Tactics, the game plans, the style of play, attacking football, scoring goals. If you didn't have a depth problem, then put the statue of Tony Bloom up now. Put De Zerbi in gold, and like, we are the iconic football team in world football. Like, there has to be a downside. The downside is we haven't had time to backfill the squad depth.
Yeah, and I want to get deeper into that, because James in the chat, and we'll get back to some of the player performances from yesterday, but the chat, do we think the management are going to be willing to bolster the squad enough in the summer, sufficient for Europe if we're in? So let's address not Europe. Say we finish 8th or lower. At that point, for me, it feels like a bit of a demolition job, doesn't it to you? Caicedo's definitely gone. Alexis will definitely be gone. Mitoma at that stage, 50-50. He's 26 years old, 25, 26. He knows that he's getting in towards the Trossard level, right? He's a year or two away from thinking, I need a big contract. So he may well be gone. Estepinian, being Estepinian, will probably be looking for a route out at that point, because there will be plenty of big clubs looking at him. We'll essentially lose half the 11 for about £280 million, which is great. Colwell's definitely gone. Yeah, I think he's gone regardless. But I mean, sure, we'll probably make like 300 million quid off of them. But the entire spine of the team will be gone. Now, if we do make Europe, things are a bit different there, obviously. We're now at a point where we have players. I think Mitoma will definitely stay if we make Europe. I think Estepinian will definitely stay. I think the only one that's definitely going to go if we make Europe is Alexis. And Caicedo will really depend on how much money is thrown around at him. But De Zerbi said yesterday, and it's directly linked to James' question in the chat. De Zerbi said next year, when we finish this season, we have to speak with the club, and I want to know their plan to understand if we can improve the squad or not, because we arrived without a lot of important players in regards to yesterday's semi-final. We have to be stronger to fight to compete another year at this standard and at this level of performance of football with these performances and results. This is not something Tony is used to hearing since the Gus Poyet era with the infamous glass ceiling, the ceiling route, right? I don't think he's anywhere near that level of commentary. Like, I don't think he has that malicious side where Gus had definitely got to that point, right? But the question is being asked, and I think it's a fair one. And De Zerbi is even now talking about it. It's not the first time he's talked about it either. He brought it up at the end of January, where he was quite clearly pissed off that we did not do anything to bolster Mwepu, Trossard, and we talked about this at length at the end of that time. Do you think that we will not break our mold, because it's not really breaking it, it's more evolving it, right? Do you think we will be willing to evolve this summer and spend the money required to make this team Europa Conference League levels capable under Roberto De Zerbi? And if we don't, if we say that that's not something we're going to do, how much danger are we in of Roberto walking away to a big job in Italy?
You want to tackle that one, Craig?
I just pass the baton on that one. Well, I feel like we need to. Like, there is something that needs to be addressed there, and I think De Zerbi's been, like you said, vocal but not malicious in his thoughts and the process of his thoughts around it. And and they're valid, right? Is that we're now operating at a higher tier in this table than we were previously, and our expectations have changed. We need to evolve with those expectations, otherwise we will be left behind and we'll make mistakes. So when it comes to that, and being able to satisfy the manager, but also make sure that we have the right resources at our disposal, there needs to be a change there. We need to be probably spending more money. I know that's not something we want to do. We want to buy cheap, sell high. But do you go down the route of getting established players like Lallana and Welbeck and maybe looking at those types of players? You know, the Oxlade-Chamberlain thing was going around like a while ago. But I'm not saying deliberately him, but feel like from a hypothetical standpoint, looking at those 28, 29-year-olds and getting those type of players in to be locker room leaders and all that lovely stuff. But so the more money needs to be spent. And I think we all know that. And I think the caliber of player is going to be much more easier to attract if we get into Europe, right? And I think if we don't, if we finish 8th and lower, we are going to lose a lot of players and we're not able to attract the level of players that we want inwards. And I'm worried about that backward step in that respect. Obviously, that conversation changes if you get into European football. But if you finish 8th and below, you're looking at a lot of outs and the ins not at the caliber that maybe we want to be seeing or that De Zerbi wants to see.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one because trying to understand the mind or predict Tony Bloom and co.'s model is tricky, because the whole value of what they've done is that they've deviated from the standard path, right? So it's almost like we have to second guess a genius. I don't think they're going to go too far away from things. No, there might be some tweaks to it, but they're going to look at this and go, by doing what we've done, we've got to where we are right now. So let's not go too far away from that. I do think that, as you've said, this club is a sexy destination now for an up and coming player to look at. Everyone wants to go to the Premier League because everyone pays you more money here. So that's number one in our favor. You don't have to go and live in Manchester or up north somewhere where, frankly, a lot of these players look at this and they're like, I don't want to be in that weather up north. And Brighton's appealing. You're close to London. They can go home regularly, all that kind of stuff.
Guaranteed first team football too, or at least a route.
Well, that's another massive thing as well. But there's also that's a bit of a double-edged sword in the sense that one of the reasons why we've been able to bring on these players, one of the reasons why we've been able to see what Evan Ferguson, Moises Caicedo, and Ciso are about, is because the squad depth is so thin. You have to bring these players on. Now, if we start to throw a bunch of money around and bulk this squad out more for a European push, do you lose that? And do you then start to, well, great, we've got some experienced 26, 27-year-old players that we've brought in and the squad is better today, but are we mortgaging the future away a little bit by not bringing on these younger players? So I don't know if they'll necessarily deviate from the path. I think there'll be more of it. I think they just need to up the quantity, right? As opposed to signing 2 of them, you're signing 4 of them. Maybe you sprinkle in a Lallana-esque kind of signing where manageable. But I don't think they're going to go away from the sort of pillars, the mantra, the foundation that's got them here today. Will it work 100%? Well, of course, we don't know. Could we go backwards? Maybe, but that's what I think they'll do.
Neither of you answered the question, so I'm going to ask you again.
Fucking Parkinson's on the case. Christ.
If we do not strengthen to a level that Roberto De Zerbi hopes to have us strengthened, do you think Roberto De Zerbi will bounce by January to a Juventus, Inter Milan, whoever else?
No,
I don't think so.
Cool.
But I think, what you added January, which was our get out of jail free. But do I think more like broadly, if we don't do a proper I think he'll give it a season. I think he'll 100% give it a season, especially if we make Europe and we're still in competitions. He'll give it a season. If it gets to next summer and he's seen enough and he hasn't got what he wanted, do I think he'll go? Potentially, yes, because he's super ambitious. He could start to think about getting every job. And again, we know it could be short-lived, right? Like, he could outstay his welcome here. Things could start to go in a direction he doesn't like, and De Zerbi isn't that guy that is wanted by those top tier jobs anymore. And he starts having to take those, go to a Fiorentina or something like that, as opposed to a Juventus or whatnot.
Yep. Yesterday,
well, you didn't answer. You got to answer.
I think if we don't give him what he's hoping to see, and Juventus come knocking in January, I do think he'll go. Yeah, I do. I'm talking big boy clubs. I'm talking to Juventus and Inter Milan. I think if someone like Fiorentina asks the question, I don't think they can afford him, let alone would he want to go. But I do think if one of the real big boys come in January, and we haven't done what we hoped to do in the summer, and we are looking like we're not going to do the same in January, I think he'll definitely be gone. I think he's too ambitious to not. It's almost like 3 strikes and you're out. This is the second time he's talked about it. You need to start putting your money where your mouth is if you're Brighton and Albion. I have total faith in Tony Bloom as well. He's talking to this guy every day, I would imagine, if not, at least pretty often, right? He's talking to Roberto about these things. I'm sure he's having these conversations with him. This is just Roberto's way of bringing it to the public, because that just seems to be who he is, and very honest, very open. Hence Paul Barber just having an aneurysm when he leaked the fact that Mitoma's probably already signed a contract extension to 5-year-olds. And that really just shows to me that, like, this isn't from a malicious place. He can't help himself. This is just, he just speaks, like, and that's what's said. It's probably why he picks up red cards. Solly March said yesterday that the players love that. Like, they love that he gets red cards. It shows that he's in it with them. They had a couple of interviews with him and Dunk. I think they're on the site now. But yeah, Solly said outright, they love it. The players love it when he gets a red card, because they know they can play. They know what to do without him, but they know he really, really gives a shit. It feels like it's a symbolic thing as much as anything else. And I think you've seen it, right? With his record sitting in the stands. It's outrageous. Mitoma yesterday played the full 120 minutes. And like you said, I did want to just touch on it. He was definitely not right for the entire afternoon. He was, from about 25 minutes in, when someone went down with an injury of some sort, was taking in whatever it was, fluid-wise, water, Powerade, something in between, those electrolyte drinks that they mix, cocktails that they have. He was taking on drinks from 25 minutes in. Shouldn't be taking drinks from 25 minutes in. At that level, you've never seen him do it before, but he was pretty much over there every 10 minutes from then on. Every break in play, he was taking on fluid. Something wasn't right with Mitoma yesterday. When he got the ball in a good position, he still ripped the piss out of Wan-Bissaka, but he just didn't get it in that position very often, and I think there was something just not quite right. And he was also a penalty yesterday too, so I wonder if that plays into it as well.
I actually thought Wan-Bissaka dealt really well with him. Wan-Bissaka, for all his faults, is good at locking someone down. But you're right. We've seen him time and time again beat better players than Wan-Bissaka, and it just didn't. I mean, in a different reality, he scores a couple of goals, right? Especially that one where a bit of a duff touch and he got through and then clattered the keeper. It could have happened, but yeah, it wasn't. But it did feel, though, this is the problem. But again, when we go into depth, not to belabor this point, but when you look around at the players that were on the pitch, Mitoma to me was the only one who got the ball where you're like, please, you can make something happen here. I guess Alexis a little bit. Anyone else, it didn't feel like it was going to be March's day. I don't think a day ending in Y is Dennis Undav's day. So there weren't other people on the pitch where you were like, please save us. It was an absolute inevitability that it was going to penalties in my mind. Once we'd gone into got to the 65th minute, I was like, we could play this forever. We're not probably going to score here.
It did feel that way, didn't it? I think it was cagey, really. And once, like you said, you need that sort of game changer in Mitoma, and if he's not up to it, or if he wasn't feeling himself yesterday and had to sort of trudge through whatever he was dealing with, I do agree. I think Wan-Bissaka did well. I think 1-on-1, he's a pretty good defender. I think there's flaws outside of that, but in locking up a 1v1, I think he's actually pretty good. But still, I think the heavy reliance on one single game changer is something that does harm you a little bit. And I think when I guess people have an off day or they're not at their best, you have to be at your best at these type of games. In knockout football, in a semi-final, a neutral venue, you have to be at your best. And we just didn't have enough of that yesterday, really. And that's the key of it. And like you said, when it gets to like 75, 80 minutes, you're talking, oh, we got another 40 minutes of football. We've made 2 subs. We can't really make any more. Like, where's the energy going to come from? You know, who else is going to sort of step up at that point, even though they're absolutely knackered?
Yeah. Well, let's also not forget, by the way, to give us some our defense. Tell you who else looked crap. Not Matoma looked crap, but Anthony Martial, rubbish. Rashford, rubbish. Anthony, the whole Man United front line looked absolutely terrible. Like if you look at Danny Welbeck and Undav, and we could all be like, oh no one was good yet. It was 22 plus players just chugging along to penalties for the most part. Outside of the first 30 minutes, I think you felt like it was a football game, and then it felt like a toiling away. But Man U didn't help the situation. Like they stodged up that pitch. Like they went very, very narrow. They clogged up the center. They didn't allow us to properly play through the middle. So we did have to go out to the flanks. And then, like we've talked about, they dealt with that fairly well. It was a frustrating one to watch, I feel like.
Man of the match, the sponsors player of the match, whatever it was Moises Caicedo. What was your what was your man of the match? Who was your man of the match yesterday?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it?
Josh, you have to go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. Pascal Gross for me.
Yeah.
He was one-on-one with Marcus Rashford too many times and dealt with him phenomenally well as Pascal Gross. I thought he played really well. His positioning was, as per usual, superb. I thought he was phenomenal yesterday, given the job he was asked to do. And then when he slotted in at midfield in the last 40 minutes or so, he was excellent as well. I thought he was really good. He was just consistent. I think he did really well defensively. He looked decent on the attack. A couple of absolute shocking corners, which were not great. A couple of times where he didn't beat the first man. But for 2 teams that didn't really seem at it yesterday, Pascal Gross stood out to me as one of the better players for Brighton.
Yeah. I think Dunk falls under that same thing for me too, right? I think he was solid, capable, like able to just be comfortable, have the ball. Just we all know what he does and what he means to this team. Just one of the better players as well, just able to control and slow things down when it needed to be slowed, and very good defensively. So just our captain.
Yeah, he stepped up a lot as well, especially in the first half. Like people had to backfill his position. I saw constantly he was like pushing out and almost playing like a regista or whatnot in Italy. It's either one of those two for me. I think I mentioned Dunk earlier. I'll probably stick with him, but I think probably Pascal Gross is the right answer. His penalty was good as well, wasn't it? Just a shame. I thought it was a weird game from Alexis. He only passed the ball 49 times, which is like showed that, because it goes back to the point that we just couldn't play that same sort of game that we're normally trying to play. And I also don't think we normally focus a lot of our attacks down that left flank. I don't think it was Estupinian's best game. He got caught out a little bit, and pass accuracy was pretty poor as well. So I know we're talking man of match, and now I'm talking about players that weren't so good. But yeah, I'd probably say Dunk was decent. But yeah, the normal process, the normal players that you normally expect to step up and be very, very good, Matoma, Estupinian, Caicedo triangle on the left-hand side, I think it was a fully off day for them, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we shake it off. We've got no other choice but to, right? and in 2 days from now, we are heading up to the City Ground against Nottingham Forest, who got beat by Liverpool on 2 days ago, I think it was, on Saturday. In a bit of a thriller, 3-2. Forest played pretty well by all accounts. I didn't see any of it, but I was listening to the Soccer Special stuff about it. They seemed to play really well, but got nothing for their efforts. So they still have no wins since the 5th of February at home to Leeds, where they won 1-0. And that was when they were in the absolute height of their Jesse Marsh implosion. This is a team that are really, really struggling towards the bottom of the table. They are in 19th currently. They need to start making the most of these home fixtures, the remaining home fixtures they have, if they want to stay up. It's still very tight down there. Some teams have pulled away. We're no longer talking about a 9-team relegation race. We've had some teams really pull away from that. Palace, unfortunately, West Ham, Wolves, possibly Bournemouth as well, who are now 5 clear. We're starting to get into kind of that 16th and below are still in big trouble. But Forest are well in that big trouble section. They are in deep shit. And they only played 2 days ago as well. And although they didn't play 120 minutes, it probably feels like it, playing a 3-2 tie at Anfield. Long way to go for them. What do you think the rotation looks like for Brighton and Hove Albion on Wednesday? Do you we don't know if Ferguson's fit, right? That's one of them that we don't know about. And we don't know what the Welbeck situation looks like either, because we don't know if he's hurt, whatever. I think we'll hear from De Zerbi tomorrow on that. So some of these questions may well be answered by the time people listen to this. But in terms of that lineup, you've got to assume that Mitoma probably isn't going to start, right? He's just he didn't look right yesterday, let alone. Does Welbeck start if he's fit? Is Ferguson even possibly ready? Does Sonny March play after 120 minutes of missing a What on earth are we going to be doing? Because when we've talked about it before, who the hell do you play for him anyway?
If Billy Gilmore doesn't play this game, he's done. Your squad probably it was a worst case scenario in terms of squad fitness that De Zerbi could have possibly you have to slog all the way through and then lose on penalties, and then you immediately have to turn around and play another game in short succession. I think the only reprieve that you get, right, is once you play this Forest game, your next 3 are home games, which I think they'll all be thrilled and relieved about that, even though they are in a short span of time. I look at these next 4 games. They are all games where we are absolutely capable of getting 3 points. They really are. Forest, Wolves, Man United, and Everton. We can win each of those games. And you could arguably say if you don't beat Forest and Everton, something has gone heinously wrong, considering where they're at. Dire straits, as you've said. I have no idea what on earth he's able to do with this team in terms of rotation. Because I don't think you can start Buonanotte. I don't think you can start Ayari. I think Colwell has to come in. But at the same time, Duncan, Webster, probably the last 2 that you really need to rotate. You don't have much else. You just have to hope Welbeck or Ferguson can do something, but at the same time, you do not want to bring them up back early and then they're out for the next 3 games because they happen quickly. That's awful.
I also think you can't drop March either. Just from that perspective, I don't think you can. Just because he sort of 120 minutes and bits and pieces and misses a penalty, just sends the wrong message just to rotate him out when we haven't been rotating him at all until now. But yeah, you're right. How many things can you change? I do think Colwell does come in for Webster, because it's one of the only rotations we can make. And I think that's the only justifiable answer to that. Otherwise, yeah, I did watch the Forest Liverpool game, and Forest are diabolical defensively and just lost their centre back to a fractured collarbone as well. So they're not doing too great, which only scares me more as a Brighton fan, naturally. But yeah, if it is Undav up front, you probably need Matoma and March to be playing anyway, because you need some sort of attacking prowess on the wings, right? And that needs to happen. Otherwise, what else are you doing? You put Veltman in maybe and move Mac to a 10 from the first minute, but like you said, you're playing with not a lot of puzzle pieces, to be fair. It'll be interesting, but we should go there and win, irrespective of those rotations that we can make and what those guys went through yesterday, is that we should be going there and taking 3 points.
Yeah, it helps that Forest played 2 days ago as well. I think if they'd had the rest, I think we'd probably be feeling a little bit different. But given that they were also on the end of they played just not long ago at all, I think that helps. Who else is injured?
Well, Lallana's back in training. Lallana is back in training.
What about Lamptey?
Lamptey's far away, I think. Just no news is not good news in this respect, is it? Because otherwise, if they can't put a time frame on it, I wouldn't expect them in time any back, and training pictures, etc. There's no sign of him.
I think from a mentality perspective, hopefully De Zerbi can get through to them that they almost need to absolutely fully pretend that this game against Man U didn't happen. Because when you go back to the actual form and where we're at and what we've been doing in the league, the Spurs result is still an absolute abomination for me. And to me, in my mind, it's 3 points. We got 3 points from that game. I still cannot believe what occurred. And when you look back on what we've done, it's been a monumental achievement. And I really, really do hope, regardless of who we put out there, De Zerbi makes it very much clear that what happened in the FA Cup doesn't matter. You just focus now on us doing an amazing job in the league and doing what we need to do. And we've seen that De Zerbi should and can make players that you otherwise wouldn't necessarily take a second look at better. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Can he do that with some of the farmers we have in the team? Who knows? But if there's anyone that could, it's hopefully De Zerbi, because he's not going to have a choice here. We're going to have to play some duffs. With all due respect, I know that sounds really, really harsh, but we are now in the part of the season where you are going to be playing players you do not want to be playing.
Yep. It's going to be an interesting one. Pascal Gross centre forward, possibly. Mikey in the chat hopes for. I hope you're not hoping for that. It's going to be an absolute disaster. All right. Well, we'll find out midweek because we have to play Forest in the middle of the week. And I don't know about recording the show because I will be there in attendance. So if you two want to fire up a post-match podcast, by all means, crack on, because I definitely won't be able to do it until Sunday, and then we're like 48 hours away from Wolves as well. So there may be a lot of content to discuss. If it's a 0-0 board draw, maybe not. I don't know. You two will have to ad-lib it and figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Depends on the vibes.
Yeah, big time. All right. Well, we've lost 2 in our last 3. We need to turn it around a little bit. And as you say, we've got a very beatable Nottingham Forest and then 3 winnable home games on the trot. So let's hope to get back to winning ways in 48 hours from now at City Ground. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap?
2 things. The first, it was weird being on the end of what everyone was claiming was a biased referee performance where we benefited and should have had way more yellow cards. And we didn't bring up refereeing and egregious decisions once. And I like that. It's a weird, nice feeling. And the second thing is, this was mentioned in the chat as well. These USA Summer Series tickets go on pre-sale tomorrow for US listeners or people in the UK that fancy going on a little US trip. Tomorrow, which would mean Tuesday, 25th of April at 10:30 Eastern US time, you can buy tickets for the Philly game against Chelsea, the Brentford game in Atlanta, and the Newcastle game in New Jersey. I will be definitely at the New Jersey game. And Craig, I know you're planning maybe on doing 1 or 2 of them.
Planning on Atlanta as well. So yeah, I'll be there at 10:30 Eastern trying to bang some tickets. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, that's it.
All right. Good luck, everybody, trying to get some stateside tickets. I wish you all the best of luck. I'm sure you'll be fine pretty much getting whatever you want at this point. The stadiums are big. All the stadiums are going to be in pretty big ones. So I'm sure that they've been allocated a certain amount for actual fans of each club before it goes on to the general psychopath sale of people just wanting to see Premier League teams.
Well, downside being is they'll charge like $400 for a crappy ticket. That's it's the land of the fee.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, we will speak to you soon. Have a good beginning of your week, and hopefully the Albion can make the end of the week a lot sweeter as well.
Thanks all.
Cheers, everyone.